Welcome to The Interviewers, a podcast for experts and influencers with advice and tips for getting booked on podcasts. This show is brought to you by guestexpertsonair.com. Here's your host, Joseph Shinbald.
Welcome to today's episode for guest experts who want to jazz up their marketing with podcast appearances. Our guest today is Jodi Krangle. Our topic for the show is how audio branding can help you as guest experts in your overall marketing strategy. Jodi is a very smart and savvy, but also a very brilliant person, and it's a very special guest. Hello, Jodi.
Hi, thanks for having me here.
You're welcome. I'm so happy to have you on my show because this is very relevant to my audience.
I've never been called brilliant with such enthusiasm.
Thank you. Well, there comes a little bit of an Austrian accent. So Jodi Krangle has been a voice actor since 2007 and audio branding expert and has worked with clients from major brands all over the world. Just to name a few: Dell, Kraft, Siemens, Whirlpool, Walmart, Marriott, Nestle, Subway. In 1995, she created an award-winning songwriting resource website called The Muse's Muse and began a business of her own doing SEO and internet marketing. When she switched to voiceovers, she was well prepared for the new world of online promotions and getting her own work. She's also a singer, grew up in a family where they sang a lot, like in Austria it used to be. Well, in 2015, she put out her own album of jazz, blues, and traditional tunes. Over the years, and doing what she does, she learned a lot about sound and how it influences people. She launched a podcast called Audio Branding, the Hidden Gem of Marketing. So we have a real podcaster here today. And this is very interesting today because we are going to learn things which usually are quite well overseen. People don't really see it, that how important that is actually audio branding. The audio you have as a guest expert on podcasts can be top-notch. It certainly will make you more attractive and fascinating as a guest expert on podcast tours. My question, Jodi, is today, being a writer, speaker, coach, guide, influencer, how can audio branding help your marketing on your expert website, on the courses you sell, on the YouTube channel you have, the videos you have on the website, the commercials you do, and the podcasts you have or the podcasts you are using as a marketing strategy? How could audio branding help you?
Well, I think it's an extension of who you are. So if you've paid a lot of attention to what you look like, and I'm not just saying what you personally actually look like, I mean what your brand looks like. So the colors that you use and the logo you have and the fonts you use and the emotions that those are supposed to evoke in people when they see it, then follow that through with how you sound. So there are ways to play music before you come onto a stage. There are ways to have music or voiceover or whatever sound effects in your videos that you put out. You could say a certain phrase all the time. So if you start off a video with that same phrase every time, people are going to know what your phrase is. And it doesn't have to be at the beginning, but if you have like a stock phrase that you just use all the time, that's like part of your tagline or something like that. If you speak it on your videos and when you're doing talks, then it becomes a part of everyone's awareness. And that's who they think of you as, even before you say it again. So it has to do with being more of who you are and getting people to that emotional shorthand of who you are really quickly. That also has to do with consistency. So switching it up all the time can be very confusing for people. It's kind of like switching up your logo all the time. You don't do that.
Right.
So, be consistent. Not to say that you can't switch, that you can't pivot, you can't do different things. You might find that you start with something and then you change it as things progress, as you learn more about what you're doing, as you pivot into different aspects of what you're doing. And that's fine. We all evolve as people and as brands, but it should have some kind of a link to who you are and who you were.
Yes, it's like, when we talk about brand or branding, it's what people say about you when you are not in the room.
Yes.
And often we don't really. Actually, I myself, I'm very it happens to many times in the past that I wasn't really aware of how important sound is. And sound is if you think about evolution, it's one of the main things which kept us alive. And if you
Yes.
think about the oceans, for instance, and you know how important sound is for dolphins and whales and all. And even in the forests, the birds sing and they couldn't live without sound. And we as humans, we are getting so fixated on the visuals that we often forget how important sound is as a system within our system. We have many systems within our system. Sound is connected with our, let's say, our taste, as I learned from you from a podcast I listened to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Our senses are all tied together, but of the senses we have, our hearing and our sense of smell are actually our most powerful. So those two senses can bring us back to moments, and we don't just remember the moments, we experience the moments. So you could hear the creak of a floorboard in a kitchen, and it'll bring you back to that exact moment when you were cooking cookies with your grandma in the kitchen when you were 6. And you're there. Like it's not, it's not it's not a memory. It's like your whole body feels it. So
Yes.
considering how important and how deeply rooted that is, how deep it reaches inside us, I think it would be a mistake not to use that in the branding of who you are to make an immediate and emotional and visceral connection with the people who you want to experience your company, your service, your product, your brand.
Yeah, particularly people, your prospects, your clients, your customers, they connect with you emotionally.
Very much so. Yeah. And we do not make decisions based on logic. We never have. And I don't think we ever will until there's like a computer in our brain instead of an actual brain.
Yes.
I just don't think that's going to happen because we aren't wired that way. We're wired to make emotional decisions and then logically explain it to ourselves.
Yes. I was 1 year in South America after high school with 2 friends. And when I came back, I studied in Austria. And whenever I heard some South American music, I was immediately there again. It really is time travel, Or if you think about, Buddhist music or Hindu music, the flute or the gong, it's all, they know these old traditions, they know how important sound is.
Yes.
It gets them into meditation, in a certain kind of meditation. And in let's say in Hinduism, they have the cosmology that everything originated from sound, like the Sanskrit holy sound Om, which is what they said it was before sight. It was like from that Om sound, like we have the Big Bang, but they say in India they say that's where the original frequencies and vibrations came from, through which in plasma form the whole world was created. So it's very important, I think, if you have your own small business and you run it by yourself, you're an expert, you have written a book, you have an online course, or you're a coach, that you understand that you can differentiate yourself. You can differentiate yourself. You can be better if you take advantage of it. Additionally to your logo and your colors in the logo and your beautiful website and all this. But if you work with sound, you will be more attractive. You will appeal to your audience more emotionally. And that will help you in the bottom line with better results.
Yeah, definitely. It's a way to differentiate yourself too, because sounds are very specific, really. So if you combine a series of sounds that you feel represents you on a very deep emotional level, and it could be any series of sounds, it could be a type of music, you could identify with a particular genre of music, you could identify with a particular singer, anything like that, or a particular instrument even. a particular chord progression. You can think about these in terms of emotion. What emotion do you want to evoke in the people that are listening? Just like what emotion do you want them to feel when they're looking at your logo? It's just an extension of that, but it reaches people really deeply and really quickly. And it's what I call an emotional shorthand, because then people will look at your logo and associate it with that sound. And then eventually, as you consistently use that sound with your logo, you won't have to show your logo anymore. All you'll have to do is play that sound and people will know exactly who they're talking to.
Exactly. It's almost like in Salzburg, Austria, my city, when you listen, like in America and Canada, when I say Sound of Music, you don't need to have an explanation for this. You know already
Not
what
at
this is
all.
all about, right? Or when you're a fan of classical music, you think about Mozart, and you know already what this is all about.
Yeah, it really reaches us deeply, and it's a great way to really show the world, let the world hear who you are.
Yes. What makes sound such an effective marketing advertising tool?
That's a good question. It's like we were saying, it's a form of time travel. It really is. It's one of those really, really powerful ways to bring us places and to make us think of things that we remember or experienced. So, like someone who listens to a particular genre of music in a particular year of music, usually people have a love of music from the time when they felt they had the best time growing up. So I could tell you, like, my love of music that nostalgically brings me back is 80s music. Like, that's that's just, if I hear any kind of 80s music, I can instantly recognize it and it brings me back to those moments and I feel happy, right?
If I would market, for instance, to you a fitness program, I'm a fitness expert, then I would probably look into, if this is my segment, this is, people women who like the music, the 80s, then I would probably choose this kind of music.
Yeah, exactly.
When I do my advertising or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I would have to probably look a little bit more in that avatar, in my dream audience, and find out what kind of other voices and sounds I can use that I can make that connection with my dream audience.
Yeah, there is kind of a Venn diagram between where your audience is and where you are. So you want that nice little mix in the middle where it's still you, but it appeals to the audience that is your avatar. So you don't want to go so far outside of your own experience and your own person to find a sound that appeals to who your audience is, because your audience wants to feel like you are like them, right?
Yes, I understand. Exactly.
So you kind of want a mix of those things, and it can be tricky to find. This is why large companies pay millions of dollars to have audio branding companies put these things together for them. I don't actually make audio brands for clients, just to be clear. I'm a voice talent, so I'm one small part of that audio branding umbrella. But
yes.
But what I contribute is definitely a part of that audio brand, and my voice will be good for some products and services and not good for others. And I'm totally understanding of that. That's what happens. You just have to make that decision for your own company and your own brand.
Yeah, but the people who listen to this podcast, they could also jump over to your podcast, and you have really several very interesting episodes, voiceoversandvocals.com podcasts, and there you can educate yourself about this voice branding. And even though you don't, as you said, you don't do the consulting directly to big companies about this, but you have a lot of good information about it. Do you do some consulting, maybe like an hour or so, that one can book as an expert a consulting hour with you, so they get some inspirations or some advice and strategies?
Well, the most I do is talk to people on podcasts about this.
Okay, so they have to go on a podcast.
Have me on your podcast. I'll tell you what it's all about. Yeah. But
Excellent.
but I do interview a lot of people who have done audio branding for other clients. And so like I know a few companies that you could contact if you were really serious about doing that. There's definitely that information that I could pass along.
Okay, so I can put this like your website and the way people can reach you in the show notes afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
That is excellent. Yeah, so my next question would be, how can we use sound to improve our life? Can sound actually heal?
It actually can. Yeah, it's amazing what our capacity for that is. I just published an episode with a woman named Kaye Doran, who is a shamanic sound healer from Australia, who actually
Wow.
teaches people how to do this and does it for them on their behalf. And she uses a number of instruments, so from singing bowls and drums and cymbals and things like that. And they're very what would you call that? They're not complicated. They're simple instruments. And
Yes.
the human voice can be very much a healing instrument as well. And she leads people through the ability to overcome their own stumbling blocks. And what she says is that people aren't broken, they're blocked, which I think is a really interesting distinction. And she says
Yes.
that the sounds help people unblock. And I think that
That makes sense
yeah.
because, when you think about all this like shamanic cultures and
Mm-hmm.
even in the yoga culture, the chakras, these energy centers,
Exactly.
they are really, when you meditate on those energy centers, then what you do is really you unblock them and you make them, so to speak, coherent again.
Mm-hmm.
You correct them again so it becomes more vertical and they are not all over the place because they are all really systems within systems. That's exactly what we said before with sound in your business or sound as a person. When you use it, it is a system within systems. It's totally related with everything else. And if it's not in order, if it's not coherent, then you will have not the real appearance or the real performance which you want to.
Yeah. People want authenticity these days more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can be way more authentic if you reach people with sound than you can be really with any other medium. It's amazing. We have such a broad spectrum of hearing, and it's so much wider than our spectrum of sight that it's incredible. They're using this in hospitals now, too. There are hospitals that actually they're doing this in a hospital in Helsinki at this moment, a children's hospital. They're putting different soundscapes into different layers of the hospital. So depending on what floor you're in the hospital, they start from the bottom and move up. So the ocean, the shore, the forest, the sky, they're starting again, and then space. And it's the soundscapes that they've put together for this are amazing. And it's way more soothing for kids, especially, to have a series of sounds around them that are interesting for them to listen to and not upsetting, as opposed to hearing
Yes.
beeps and blips and alarms and people yelling and moving all over the place and,
Yeah.
as you would
That
normally
affects
hear in a
totally.
hospital.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yes, yes.
So, yeah.
I think the most beautiful sound as a child is the sound of your mother and then your father.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you think about it later on, you're learning language. You have these linguistic skills which you acquire. And it's also, we are talking right now, it's not first a written language. And when you are young, when you're a child, it's all about sound.
Mm-hmm.
And then you learn how to write it and then you learn how to read it. So again, you can see where sound comes from. It's the first words we hear. We don't read them. We don't see them. It's not visual.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are some sounds that hit people harder than others. I mean, it depends on who you are and what your experience has been, but I do know that a lot of people really love the sound of the ocean lapping on the shore because that's the sound you heard in your mother's belly, like the heartbeat with water, right?
Yeah, I have a wonderful experience there because I was 1 year in Nicaragua on the beach. I rented a little house there. It
Wow.
was not long ago.
Uh-huh.
And there were such high waves. And whenever I came back from shopping from the city, went to the beach, I lie down in my hammock, and it wouldn't take long. I've never experienced such a deep meditation just by sitting in my hammock and listening to these waves, these ocean waves. They brought me to the core of the earth.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's really
Just
powerful.
amazing.
It's really powerful. So not only can you reach clients and customers and anyone who might want your service or your product or to interact with your company and experience your brand with sound, but you can make a deeper, more authentic connection with them because it gives them a really deep insight into who you are. The flip side of that is that you have to be careful with the sounds that you're using in the sense that you don't want to be inauthentic. So you want to give some serious consideration to the sounds that you're using. So think about your on-hold music. If you're a high-end jewelry store, you don't want 80s hairband music on your on-hold. Have it match your image as opposed to just using sound wherever you want to. It's not just being used just because.
Yes, Jodi, I understand. So what would be the steps if I am now a listener and I'm, let's say, a course creator? I have my beautiful website. I sell courses there. I do consulting there from that website, and I've written a book, whatever. So how would you step by step become more, first of all, become more aware of how do I relate to that kind of music, that kind of voice? What is it, my identity? Is it my authenticity? And then how does it relate to my avatar? Often the avatar is yourself, but it is your dream audience. They're similar to you, and it has to have some kind of, it has to have a relationship. And so the first step I would imagine is to become more aware of it. So what is the next step? Do you have to know the exact age group of your audience so you can find out what they listened to when they were in their 20s or whatever you sell? I mean, if you're having a spa, then it will be probably different from than rock and roll music. Then it will be very different. But the point is here, do you have some steps a listener here in my audience could actually follow through?
Well, I do have a 5 tips for a more intentional audio strategy PDF that's actually off of my website. So you can go through that process. What it basically takes you through, though, is mostly marketing 101 with an audio flavor to it. So you're finding your avatar, you're finding where those people hang out. Where on social media are they? Which medium are they using? Are they watching television? Are they listening to the radio? Are they listening to other podcasts? Or are they on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or TikTok or Instagram or wherever? Once you know where they are, then you know kind of what medium you can use to reach them. And once you know how you're going to reach them, then you know how you should sound. Because like you said, if you're speaking to someone who is wanting a spa day, you're not going to be a loud, raucous rock guy, you're just not going to do that, right? It's situational as well.
Or the other way around, it would be even worse.
Yes. You want to put them in a state of, this is how you will feel when you experience what I'm offering. That's kind of but it's all emotional, and music and sound and all of this, they hit us on an emotional level. So that's how you have to think about it.
So what happens if the other way around? If you completely ignore the sonic branding, as you say, sonic branding, the sound branding, the audio branding, when you ignore it completely, what could be the worst result? How would it affect your business maybe if you're unaware of it, if you don't do anything about it? Is it the same, or is it even worse as if you have a website without a logo, or if you have colors all over the place on the website, maybe 7 different colors? Is it similar?
Yeah, it is kind of similar, but if your visual and your audio don't match, then people don't think you're being authentic. They think you're trying to put one over on them. They just won't trust you, and they won't know why. It's almost subconscious. But beyond that, the worst thing as an advertiser that you can have happen is to be ignored.
Yes.
I mean, isn't that the worst possible thing that could possibly happen? Just people don't remember who you are.
Yes, and that's the lack of authenticity, because in a
Exactly.
marketplace where there are just so many, you can't really compete that I will be better than the best. You have to see what is my advantage, where do I fascinate, and then look at where you are different and become more of that, what you are different in, and how many elements do you have where you can be different. One of the main elements is surely that congruency, that coherence with sound and visuals.
Yeah.
Authenticity
It
is,
allows
yeah.
you definitely authenticity. Yeah. It allows you a way to show people without showing them to like tell people who you are without being in their face about it. Like when you're writing a novel and they say show don't tell. Like you're supposed to you can't just explain that this person is the way they are. You have to show them doing something that illustrates that's how they are. So that's what sound does for you. It brings out that emotional connection without you having to explain it too much. Yeah, so it becomes more of an experience, and people like experiences.
Yes,
They remember experiences.
yes. And just like they like confident individuals, or individuals who have a certain equanimity about themselves, the same way they see that also in a brand, they see that also in a business, I believe. And that comes with all these elements in one place, particularly
Yeah, it
the
really
sound. I
does.
mean, if
Yeah.
you would think about when I was 20 and you go to a bar and you are trying to get to know girls, and you say in a very high pitched tone, hello, it isn't really attractive, right?
It depends. If that's who you are, I mean, don't put on a voice.
Right. I
Do
could
you know
make
what I
it
mean?
very, I
Like,
could make it very low, and then they would say, "What? This is just a fake." This guy doesn't really
yeah.
talk as deep down.
I mean, the idea is in any relationship is to be you and then be appreciated for who you are, because you don't want to have to constantly be pretending to be someone else.
Right. But it's a challenge to become aware of it and to actually become more of who you are, because sometimes, we are in our world, we play so many roles, we have so many different masks, so to speak. It's normal, everybody
Yep.
does. And then we lose a little bit that authenticity, the one who we really are. And when you're on the phone with your mother, she would know right away without you telling the name
Yeah.
that's you, because she knows your voice. And so to your friends and all this, and that's your authenticity. And then in the marketplace, you have to also become like this, I think. So Jodi, how can people find you if they want to know more about what you are offering in your business, or if they want a voiceover for their business? How can they find you?
Well, the 5 tips I was talking about before, those are at voiceovers.com/audio-branding-strategy. And it does actually put you onto a mailing list when you download the PDF for just letting you know when the new podcasts are coming out once a week. I release a new episode on every Wednesday morning. And that's really all it is. It gives you access to a resource section also called the Studio, where I have some snippets of audio from my previous podcasts that actually no one else hears because it's very specific to that subscriber location. And I have some discounts there, and I have PDFs, and some of my past guests have given me videos and downloads of their books and really interesting white papers and things like that would help someone who's interested in creating an audio brand of their own, or in just having a more powerful voice. An upcoming episode is actually with a woman in Singapore who teaches people how to have a more powerful personal voice. Your actual voice, not your branding voice. And it's a fascinating discussion, and she has some really interesting information. So there's that. Although if you don't want to be on a mailing list, my email is all over the website. You can just email me and I'll send you the PDF if that's what you want. That's fine.
It comes up. It comes up right away. I was on the website and I subscribed. I'm your subscriber, and I have downloaded this very beautifully done PDF.
Thank you. My website for voiceovers is voiceoversandvocals.com. And the podcast you can reach directly at audiobrandingpodcast.com. And right now, I think there are 57 episodes,
Wow.
something like
So
that. It'll be more by the time this comes out, probably, but
that's an accomplishment. So I'm shooting
well,
for
it's
this
over a
number
year.
myself.
It's been a real learning experience. Just the whole podcast thing in general is a huge learning experience, also in audio branding.
Yes. Well, me too. I'm learning all the time.
Mm-hmm.
This is the selfish aspect of having a conversation with an expert on a podcast, because you are also in there, not just for the audience, but you're also interested and you're learning also, of course.
Oh, yeah, I learn a ton.
Exactly.
That's why I say I'm not the audio branding expert. I'm a fellow traveler, just like you out there. Yes. I'm trying to learn as much as I can to put this to work for me as well. So, it's all a learning experience.
Yeah, it's a beautiful website. I love it. And you can actually see that Jodi is exactly doing what she's preaching here. She has a fantastic podcast with the audience, perfect audio. And also, you're a great web designer and SEO expert. You have been in the internet sphere for a very, very long time.
I have to say, I have paid experts. My HTML expertise probably ended in 1997. So I pay experts to do my website for me.
You know the best experts, because that's where you have to have already that knowledge beforehand, right? So thank you, Jodi, for having been on my show. This is excellent. I'm so privileged and so honored to have you on my show, that you have been on my show. And I thank all the guest experts for listening in.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. The recap of the show with bullet points will be in the show notes, and the links also to the websites. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe to have you here again for our next episode. And then I say thank you and goodbye until we meet again.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Interviewers, brought to you by guestexpertsonair.com.